Hi everyone, hope you're having a good day. Welcome back to the Mind Oracle channel. Today we are going to be looking at more factors that affect eyewitness testimony, and specifically in this video we're going to be looking at how anxiety can affect the accuracy of eyewitness testimony. Now, one of the main key terms that you need to know for this topic is definition of anxiety. You can't just state it's a state of feeling anxious. Obviously, the term that you want to use is a state of emotional and physical arousal, typically associated with worried thoughts and feelings of tension. Now, there is quite a lot of detail when it comes to the topic of anxiety. It's why I've made a separate video for this from the other two factors affecting eyewitness testimony. One of the first studies that you need to know is the Johnson and Scott lab study. So they had two different conditions. They had a low anxiety condition and a high anxiety condition. The low anxiety condition had a casual conversation where a man walked into a room with greasy hands and a pen saying, "Too bad the machine broke." And I know that's a little bit confusing, but it's just something that you're going to have to memorize. There's also the high anxiety condition where there was an argument that could be heard, there was smashing, and a person entered with bloodied letter, an opening. He'd said that he would not let me go, and it included a shock machine. So it's okay if you can't remember all of these details. I know that it is a little bit confusing. It definitely was confusing for me when I learned it, but some of the main details that you just need to say is that there was a low anxiety condition and a high anxiety condition. The most memorable thing for me from the low anxiety condition was a man with greasy hands, and the most memorable thing for me from the high anxiety condition was the fact there was argument and blood and smashing. So overall, it was just a lot more tense, making it a more high anxiety environment. So hopefully, you can just remember that and use that in the exam. Now, from the study, you need to know the results and the conclusions, of course. So, from Johnson and Scott's study, they found that 33% of those in the high anxiety condition were able to pick out the man, compared to 49% in the low anxiety condition. Now, what that shows is that they basically had worse recall when they were in the high anxiety condition. So, the conclusion or the theory from that is tunnel theory, which means that we pay more attention to weapons because they make us anxious, and therefore we end up with worse recall. Basically, it means that we're zooming in on this one thing that's causing us a lot of anxiety, which then results in us ignoring the different details of the scenario, which is also known as weapon focus effect. Loftus et al. In 1987 also found that this was a part of witnesses' eye movements as well. So they could track the witnesses' eye movements and found that they tended to focus on the weapon, which further supports the weapon focus effect, because if you're focusing on this one thing without paying attention to other details, then your overall accuracy of recall of the crime or the event that took place is going to be much worse because you haven't been paying attention to them. Now, there is a little bit more research that we do need to look at before we move on to the evaluations, but before that, we're going to be just focusing on how anxiety works in our body normally. So, a situation that causes anxiety, a really frightening situation, or a threatening situation results in physiological arousal in our body, which then results in fight or flight response, which I'm sure that you all have heard about. And as a result, we pay more attention to our surroundings, and therefore this leads to better recall. So this is the alternative theory. So some research suggests that high anxiety situations results in worse recall, but other research suggests that actually involves better recall, and this is the reasoning behind that. So the research that says, or theorists that say that anxiety causes us to have better recall, say that because of the fight or flight response, we pay more attention to our surroundings to increase our chances of survival. And one example of this is the Yule and Cutshall study. So this is actually based on a real life robbery that happened where someone was killed, and 13 witnesses from that event, the real life event, agreed to take part. So what they did was that after 4 to 5 months, they had to rate how stressed they felt and any emotional issues that they have faced since the event, and they were asked to recall the details of the event. Now, that study showed that the highest level of stress, so people that had rated themselves as being more stressed, recorded 88% accuracy compared to 75% for people that said that they were less stressed. So, contrary to the research that we saw before with the low anxiety and high anxiety simulation, this study shows that actually feeling more anxious or being in a high anxiety situation could potentially increase our accuracy of recall due to fight or flight, due to us paying more attention to our surroundings so that we can increase our chances of survival. One way of illustrating this that you need to know about for this topic is the Yerkes-Dodson law, which is basically a normal distribution graph, normal distribution being this bell-shaped curve, which, as you can see, shows that when we have too low anxiety or too high anxiety, our performance is generally weaker. So we need a good amount or the optimal amount of anxiety, which is the peak of the curve, in order to have a strong performance. So think about this in terms of preparation for exams. If you don't care enough for your exams, if you have very low anxiety, you're probably not going to do the revision that it takes to do well in the exam. If you're way too stressed about it and if you're feeling constantly overwhelmed, that might interfere with your ability to focus on the task at hand, which could also lead to worse performance. So you need a good amount of anxiety for your test to make sure that you are doing the revision necessary for it, but you're not also feeling so overwhelmed that you're not able to concentrate and not able to perform well. So just remember that when you think about the Yerkes-Dodson law and remember the graph for it. Okay, so now we will be moving on to the evaluations. I've included two weaknesses for this. For a strength, you could repeat the evaluations that we've been looking at in our other factors affecting eyewitness testimony videos. So, them being that because we know, because of the research that's gone into this, we know that anxiety is something that does affect the accuracy of memory. So, what certain cognitive interview techniques involve is making sure that the witness feels as relaxed as possible. So, police officers might offer them a drink or might let them calm down for a few seconds before they start asking questions, things like that. So that would be an example of a strength, but in detail, we're going to be covering two weaknesses of this theory that anxiety is a factor that can affect eyewitness testimony. Okay, so one of the weaknesses is the fact that the research supporting this theory has low internal validity. So, a study by a researcher called Pickle suggests that reduced anxiety may be due to surprise rather than anxiety. So, for example, the weapon focus effect might not actually be relevant in terms of affecting accuracy of memory. So, an example of this is a study that took place. So, in the study, the participant had to see someone use various different objects within the scene. So, it included things like weapons, like sharp items like scissors, but it also included some more uncanny or weird objects like a rubber chicken. So, what Pickle was trying to say here is that our reduced accuracy might be due to surprise at an unexpected object like a rubber chicken, as opposed to feeling scared because of a weapon or feeling threatened by sharp objects or things that could harm us. So he's saying that the weapon focus effect alone isn't a good enough explanation, or it might not even be completely relevant when we're trying to explain that anxiety could be a factor that affects eyewitness testimony. Another weakness, we have covered a similar evaluation for this in our previous video, but another weakness could be individual differences. So, people that are labeled as neurotic usually had higher accuracy when they were recalling information. So, that means that there could have been a confounding variable such as personality, and this is an issue because that means that the research that has been done into how anxiety affects eyewitness testimony didn't take into account that some people are just neurotic, and as a result they have higher accuracy when recalling certain types of information rather than it just being things like tunnel theory or weapon focus effect. So therefore we need to take into account the fact that people's personalities can also affect how well they remember certain types of information. So the theory that anxiety or the weapon focus effect, those things alone are not enough, and more research needs to be done as to whether or not individual differences, such as neuroticism, could also affect how well we remember crime or certain events that happen in our lives. Now, that is it for our AO1 and AO3. And remember, while these videos are a great way to improve your understanding of the topics, I'm also in the process of creating a more detailed revision website with loads of different summaries and notes to help you gain those top grades. You can find a range of things from sample essays that score top marks to bonus evaluations that can help you stay ahead and get those extra marks in exams. I'm also linking down my Fiverr profile in the description below, so any of you who want a little bit of extra help, I'm offering package services including one-to-one sessions and group work, including study plans and revision plans for any upcoming exams to help you out. I do have a lot of experience when it comes to psychology mentoring and tutoring, so please do go take a look if you think that that could be something that you could benefit from. I'm more than happy to help out. Also, if you think you'd be interested in learning more about psychological topics outside of the curriculum, please do go check out our sister channel on our main page. It's called Mystic Mind. It has a range of different topics that the curriculum doesn't cover, like attachment theory and attachment styles, to slightly more obscure psychology like paranormal psychology. So, if you think that that's something that you would be interested in, please do go and take a look. It might be of interest and it could help you even more with the topics that you are learning for your exams. Now I'm going to be covering the exam practice section of the video. So the exam question would be to outline and evaluate research into the effects of anxiety on the accuracy of eyewitness testimony. So pause the video, try to make a plan, or if you want to challenge yourself and stretch yourself a little bit further, try answering the question as an 8 marker or a 16 marker, and then come back to see what sort of points you should have covered, whether you forgot anything, etc. Okay, so just to recap, Loftus said that there was 49% accuracy for the condition with a pen, otherwise known as the low anxiety condition, which suggests that people who were in a low anxiety condition generally performed better. So if you aren't experiencing a lot of anxiety, you will recall things more accurately and therefore you will have a better memory of the event. However, opposing this, there was a real life study from Yule and Cutchell that found that witnesses who had been or had rated themselves as most distressed at the time gave the most accurate account 5 months later, which is a contrasting theory to Loftus's study. And a bonus that you could also add is another study which found victims of genuine bank robberies were more accurate in their recall than bystanders. So that's another theory supporting the fact that high anxiety situations might actually improve the recall of eyewitness testimony rather than decrease it, like Loftus suggests. So that's it for how anxiety can affect the accuracy of eyewitness testimony. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you liked it, please do go like and subscribe and comment down below what you enjoyed and whether you think that anything could be better about the videos. We're always looking for ways to improve, and please do go check the links below. Thank you.